Okay, so video number 2. This one is on multiple deposit expansion of the money supply. So like I was emphasizing in the previous video, an individual bank can only lend out the amount of that amount equal to its excess reserves and no more. When it lends that money out, let's say it lends it out in cash to the person, it has no more excess reserves, so it can't loan anything else out. If it lends the money to the person by creating a checking account for that person that it lent the money to is inevitably going to be writing checks for the loan amount right away. Okay, if they loan the money to buy a car, the person's going to turn right around and go to a car lot and buy the car and write a check for it, and the money is going to come out of the bank, going to come out of its excess reserves, and it will have no more excess reserves once that check has been cashed and the money is out. So that's why an individual bank can only lend the amount of its excess reserves. But the banking system is composed of many, many banks, and the banking system as a whole can lend out a multiple of the initial deposit. So your book explains that, and I know those of you that read the book thoroughly, you've got it already. You're probably, bored of the video. What can you learn from this video? Who knows? Let's see. Those of you that haven't read the book yet, you're going to hopefully read the book after you watch my video here. All right, so the banking system has a lending potential of multiple times that initial deposit. As you read through the material, eventually you're going to come to page 711, and at the bottom of the page, you're going to have a table of numbers labeled expansion of the money supply by the commercial banking system. And it's going to talk about rounds of lending that go on. Bank A, the initial bank. It could be Wahoo Bank that we read about in the beginning of the chapter, Serendipity Bank from problem number 2, Third National Bank from problems number 3 and 4, whatever bank A is. Let's say that somebody just got a check from the federal government, a stimulus check, okay? But let's say it wasn't for $1,200, it was only for $100, because that's what the book is using here. So they got a check for $100 stimulus payment, money from the government. Now, for one thing, that's government creating brand new money that didn't exist a minute ago. So $100 is in the money supply now that wasn't there before, just because of this check that a person received. That person takes the check and deposits it in their bank, Bank A. So $100 going into Bank A. Bank A, let's say they have a 20% required reserve ratio. We know in the real world it's only 10%, but the book is using a 20% reserve ratio. They have to keep $20 in reserves. Required reserves. REQ, required reserves, okay? So this is the deposit. So that means that they have excess reserves. I'll just write excess of $80. Meaning they can make a loan for $80. So they lend out that $80, and that would be column 4 in the book. I'm not going to put column 4 up here. $80 gets lent out. That $80 that they lent out, 2 S's on excess, that $80 that they lent out now is going to be used to buy something. The person who receives the $80 for whatever they sold to the guy who was the borrower, is going to deposit that $80 in their bank. And let's say that they bank at Bank B. $80 deposit into Bank B. They're required to keep 20% of $80, and that is $64. I'm sorry, it's $16, sorry. $16 is the required reserves, meaning that they have excess reserves now of $64. $64 gets lent out. Somebody gets that money because they sold something to the guy who was the borrowee, and they deposit it in their bank, Bank C, they get a $64 deposit. They have to keep 20% of it, which is $12.80. And they have $51.20 to lend out. And I'm not going to go any further. You can look in the book to see how that just goes round after round after round after round. They go through, I believe I counted 14 rounds there, letters A, bank A through bank N. And then at the bottom, the last line is just all the other banks, all the other rounds of lending. Because for those of you that are mathematicians, this is an infinite series. You just keep taking 20% out, 80% lent, 20% out in reserves, 80% lent out, 20% goes into reserves, 80% gets lent out. And this can go on infinitely. When you get to about the, before you get to the 20th round, you've gone a long way toward the total. And there is a limited total here. There is a limited amount. Again, if you're a mathematician, at some point you either have or you will learn the formula for this, the equations that work this out. But there is a limitation on this. The maximum amount of money that can be lent out based on this initial $100 deposit is $400, okay? So you add up all these loans that are being made, add them all up. These are all loans that were made, and you get $400 more. Okay? Now, the 100 was brand new money in the economy. The 400 is brand new money. So based on this $100 initial deposit, which was new money in the economy, there's 500 more dollars in the economy than there were before this initial transaction took place. The required reserve ratio is 20%. That's 0.2, okay? Or 0.20, all right? The formula to figure out how much money can be created based on an initial deposit is called the money multiplier formula. And it is 1 over the required reserve ratio, okay? So this is 1 over the required reserve ratio, RRR, okay? Well, 1 over 0.2 is going to be 5. The money multiplier is 5. A deposit of $100 that was brand new money in the economy results in $500 in money supply in this economy, okay? We're going to be making use of this money multiplier rather frequently, so get used to it. 1 over the reserve requirement. What's the real money multiplier in the United States? Well, it's 1 over 0.1, 10%. So it's 10, okay? Now that is the maximum amount that can be created based on an initial deposit. Now, when you're doing questions on the AP exam or my exams, or when you get to college and you're dealing with any of this financial stuff, you have to remember this, that the initial deposit is part of the total amount of money that can be created. So the $100 is part of that 5 times. 5 times 100 is 500. So if they ask you how much more money can be created or how much more new money can be created from the $100 deposit, the answer is $400 more, because the 100 is part of the 5 times, the multiple, plus the 400 gives you the 500, okay? So be very careful when you're reading the questions to see what they're looking for. If they're saying, what's the money multiplier? That's how you figure it out. If they're saying, here's a deposit, how much more money can be created? There's the answer, 400. If they're asking how much new money is going to be in the economy based on this $100 deposit, the answer is 500. The 100 plus the 400 is 500, which is the money multiplier, okay? So that is the money multiplier. That's really all I wanted to get across in this particular little video here. And I think the next video I make will be on the homework questions. So hope your Tuesday is going well.